Let's take a moment to ask the question that I asked when I first won the award, and it's this: what is public policy? I came to the simple conclusion that public policy is a combination of evidence, what we know about something, values, what we feel about something, equals action. A push for political action as policy. It's a pretty simple equation, and it was one that I was pretty confident of because I had spent most of my career, or the more prominent part of my career, 14 years, working on the Maclean's university rankings, a project that I took with some reluctance, having left the industry and saying, I don't do numbers, I do words. And I decided, having a young boy who was 7 years old, and I was watching what Mike Harris was doing to education in this province, that it would be interesting. It would be interesting to ask people what their class sizes were and what their investment in libraries was and how many tenured faculty they had in front of first-year students. I thought that would be interesting. And it was a really clear public policy exercise. It was evidence, so class sizes, let's take a simple one, plus values. When the first Maclean's ranking appeared on the newsstand, it sold out in 3 hours. In some cities, 3 days across the country. So unprepared was the magazine, it took them 3 weeks to get a reprint going. Why? Because baby boom parents had an incredible need to understand what kind of value their sons and daughters were getting in terms, a very well-educated generation, what kind of education their sons and daughters were having. So it's really simple, and an equation I lived with for a long time. Evidence plus values equals public policy. That generation of parents pushed people like Paul Martin for reinvestment in higher education, and that's never changed. So this was a simple equation that produced a best-selling issue. Those who are Canadians will know all about that. And David, it's very different from the U.S. News and World Report exercise. But when it comes to alcohol, I found the story was just the opposite. I met researcher after researcher, smart people, the ones I just named, who would say, just got a great study, can't get it in the Globe and Mail. Not too surprised. Here's the Globe and Mail, February, the month of February. I should have this up on the slides, but I'm a bit of a Luddite. It's February, let's drink. The only real attention that the Globe and Mail pays to alcohol is its wine column. And I'll leave it at that. But basically, we're stalled. We're stalled in getting coverage of alcohol policy. I'm probably telling tales out of school, but when we got a little coverage in the Star this week, it took a call to the top to make sure that we got coverage, and I'm so glad to have the Star with us today. Why are we stalled? We've got substantive evidence, the kind of evidence that you've already heard of, and you're going to hear more about it today, on the harms caused by our favorite drug. And we have a brain trust, as I've already said, but we have absolutely a vacuum in terms of coverage, in terms of the proportions we should. Too often in the last year, I've heard Tim Stockwell tell me that a study on pricing that he may have done is top of the news at the BBC, and yet it's not even mentioned in this country. So why is this the case? Well, I would say we've got excellent evidence, but our values are very fuzzy. When it comes to alcohol, we're not sure how we feel. And substantive evidence plus fuzzy values equals political inaction, a vacuum in public policy. And that's what we need to confront today, a political no-fly zone. We have a national alcohol strategy in this country. It's been collecting dust, more or less, no offense, for a couple of years. Why? Because Mr. Harper is not interested in going anywhere near it. So as Canadians, we're deeply schooled in the harms associated with trans fats and tanning beds, and blissfully unaware of the harms associated with liquor. It's as if we're under a spell, and we are. A fantasy around our favorite drug, a fairy tale that stopped us from moving forward. This despite the fact that the evidence is rock solid. As we all know, we romance the glass in our culture. Walk into most gatherings and the first question you're going to be asked is red or white. Alcohol is ubiquitous, essential to our notions of celebration, relaxation, and reward. Holding your liquor is a sign of maturity, and knowing your wines is a sign of sophistication. In some circles, red wine is seen as healthy as dark chocolate and vitamin D, and Jürgen will tell you that's not true. In fact, the alcohol industry has sold us on the notion that only really, really good things happen when there's alcohol, and to have really, really good things happen in your life, you must drink. As a group, we tend to other the alcohol problem. It's the rare alcoholic who can't hold their liquor, or it's the bad apple drunk who has an issue, or the rubby on the street corner. And if it's our problem, well, we're just trying to drink like the French or the Italians. Actually, the truth is we've totally normalized risky drinking. More than 80% of our population over the age of 15 drink, and for many it's a deep love affair. Only 2.5% are alcoholic. There are 20 million current drinkers in Canada, and 9 million qualify as moderate risk drinkers. And if I've got any of those numbers wrong, somebody will correct me later. If you got rid of all risky drinking, you would cut alcohol sales in half. This is the real eye-opener. A substantial proportion of alcohol-related harms and costs come from the occasional risky drinkers. So let's take a minute to look at more evidence. Binge drinking is by far the most common excessive drinking pattern in North America, and we have to broaden our understanding of what we consider an alcohol problem to be. Gerald Thomas, I'm sure, will mention what he is calling the epidemiological perfect storm, but I can't help raise it right now, which is that one of the riskiest drinking populations is young Canadian women between the ages of 25 and 34, an age group that delivers 62% of the babies in this country. And I'm not trying to just relegate women to the bearers of children, but it's a fascinating fact.